this lecture. By the way, I've already done it one time, but the audio was messed up, so I'm having to redo it, and it took me over an hour last time, so I'm a little grumpy. But MLA formatting, again, tested on the EOI, something that most teachers teach by having you do an entire research paper. While that's helpful, I think that when you do a research paper, the emphasis should be on the research and the argument and learning and proving things. And unfortunately, that's not how you're tested. You're tested on the formatting, which is kind of the technicalities. So this whole lecture is going to be about the technicalities. And then when we're done, I'm going to give you some information and have you actually format it yourselves. Let's listen to this lecture here. I may pause it and explain a few things in between, but for now, just listen to this. It's going to tell you a little bit more about the three main components of MLA.
Welcome to MLA formatting in 3 easy steps. If you can master these 3 steps, you should have no trouble satisfying the requirements for your MLA research paper. First, we'll cover the heading and the title. Second, we'll take a look at some options for in-text citations. And finally, we'll address the works cited page. I have a sample MLA research paper here, and we'll take a look at number 1, the heading and the title. Now, the first thing you're going to want to do is to include your last name and the page number throughout the paper. You can see here the writer's name is Ben Smith, and we have Smith space 1. Now, you can add the page number.
Okay, this stuff again is what's on the wall up there. That's the heading that I've had you do all year. Note that this is a 1/2 inch margin. Your header is a 1/2 inch margin, and your heading, that's header, this is heading. Your heading is a 1 inch margin, as well as the margins on the entire paper all the way around, other than that header are 1 inch.
By going to Insert in Microsoft Word and over to Page Number and insert the page number at the top of the page. Then once you've inserted the number, you can double-click on that number to access the window for the page number and type in your last name. The next part of the heading is this 4-piece structure. We'll start with your full name, then the instructor's name, followed by the course and the date in what we could call European style, with the day first, followed by the full month spelled out, and then the current year. After the heading, you'll want to add another space and then create your title. You'll center this title, and here I've chosen a classic or perhaps cliche approach to a title, which is to come up with something creative, to use a colon, and then to follow that up with a more specific description of the title. Now let's take a look at the in-text citations, and by that I mean the quotations or references or paraphrases that you are using from your research sources. And what I've demonstrated here is 2 different ways to include quotations.
Okay, on this I want to kind of take a second and look at when it's an actual quote. Okay, and he's going to talk a little bit about this, but I want you to note that when it's a quote and we cite the author and the page number, we have a period. Even if we paraphrase, let's say we change that into something else, it wasn't directly quoted, but we paraphrased it. Instead of saying incorporating quotations, a sentence finisher in the block quote, we just said incorporating words of other people, or including words of other people. That way it's completely paraphrased. Even if I change it up and I don't have quotes, if it's short, I have the author and the title in parentheses before the period. But when you get down here, and he's going to explain that a little bit more, when it's a long quote, the citation goes outside the period. Short quotes inside the period, the citation's inside the period. Long quotes, it's outside the period.
In your paper, a citation doesn't have to be a quotation. It can be a paraphrase or an idea taken from a source that you want to give credit to. But here I have a couple of examples of quotations. I have the sentence finisher and the block quote. If we take a look at this sentence here, it's a good example of the sentence finisher. And here I mean the idea that you're starting the sentence with your own words, and then the source is essentially coming in to complete your thought. And we have There are two preferable methods for, and then the quotation begins, incorporating quotations, the sentence finisher, and the block quote. We finish the quotation with the final set of quotation marks, and then we include the in-text citation. And here we add a space, we use a parentheses, we use just the last name of the author, another space, and just the number, not a P or a PG. Now, a couple of quick notes here. Had we already mentioned Johnson's name in this paragraph preceding this quotation, we would not have needed to put his last name here, only the number 23. But because there's no name mentioned, we need to put that last name in, and I'll show you why that is in a bit here when we look at the works cited page. Now, you can see here as another example, we have another sentence finisher, and as I've noted, you don't need to complete the sentence with a quotation. It can appear somewhere in the middle or certainly at the beginning. Oftentimes, though, it's better to begin with your own words before you throw in a quotation. And here, the author has just included 3 words, completely finish off as the quote. But nonetheless, the citation still appears at the end of the sentence. The only exception is if you're using more than one source within one sentence, and then you would need to cite the first source where the first quotation appears, and then the second separate source at the end of the sentence. And as you can see here, there is no Johnson because we're assuming, as readers of the paper, that the follow-up quote to this is also from Johnson, and Johnson's name has already been mentioned. So here are a couple of examples of the sentence finisher style and the citation that you can use to indicate what your source is. In a bit here, we'll see that our works cited will need to contain these sources. Now, the second style, other than the sentence finisher, that is commonly used in an MLA research paper is the block quote, and there are a couple of different things with that. Now, first of all, you use the block quote when you're quoting more than 4 lines within the paper. And you can see here we have 5 lines.
Okay, so more than 4 lines. Typically, this isn't something that's going to be tested on the EOI, but you still need to be aware of what's a block quote. And again, it's more than 4 lines on when typed. Okay, when typed and indented here, more than 4 lines. He's going to spend a little bit more time talking about this. It's more important for if you actually have to write a research paper. But the whole thing about the MLA, I'm not sure if I covered this at the beginning. MLA, the reason we do this is because our entire society is based off this idea of research and learning, and it's not just educational, it's business-wise, that we want to research and learn as much about the world around us as we can. And to kind of do that, we try to have a commonality in the way that we access information, and MLA is one of those commonalities. It's used in specific fields. APA is probably more proper or more widely known, widely used for fields outside of the liberal arts, which English, philosophy, stuff like that are going to be considered your liberal arts. But MLA is the one in which it's one English uses, so it's the one in which you will be tested over on the EOI. Again, it's just a standardization of how we present information so that it is easy to understand what information is being presented to us and how to interpret it. I mean, it's kind of like how we use the dictionary. We have a specific format. We look, we see a word. We see how it's divided into syllables. We see how to pronounce it. We see the parts of speech that it can be used as and all the different forms. Then we get definitions of it. And then finally, maybe the etymology. But most dictionaries are formatted the same way so that we're not trying to figure out what it is they're presenting to us. It's just a common form. And that's what we're talking about when we say MLA, Modern Language Association. It's a format. It's the standardization of information so that we can interpret it and access it a little easier.
5 lines of this quotation. So here's the basic strategy. You finish your sentence, and you finish that sentence, a complete sentence, with a colon. You hit return, and you tab over twice. And you can see here, based on where this paragraph begins, that this is indeed 2 tabs. You don't use quotations for the block quote format, and usually these block quotes are more than 1 sentence, so you do not include the period outside of the citation. Just to back up really quickly, in the sentence finisher version, because we were only quoting within one of our own sentences, we included the period for the sentence outside the quotation marks. However, if there is more than 1 sentence being quoted, we don't need to do that. And so you can see here, there are multiple sentences, multiple periods already within this quotation. We merely end our sentence, the outside, with a period, and we do our Johnson space 34, and we don't put a period at the end. Now, the idea is here that when you have a longer quote that takes up more than 4 lines, you sort of set it aside. It's a little more noticeable for the reader to look at, and it might just be a larger chunk of text that you want the reader to focus on so that you can follow up and explain what's going on. So if we utilize the sentence finisher and the block quote, and we stick to those formats, and we follow up those quotations or paraphrases with citations using the author's last name, if it already hasn't been mentioned, and just a number to indicate the page number of the quotation where it appears originally in the article, then we'll have satisfied the kind of basic requirements. Now, there are any number of variations on these basic in-text citations, and you can consult me or refer to the OWL Purdue website, which I've provided for those variations. Now, the works cited page should be its own separate page.
Okay, this is the part that you're most likely to be tested over, how to cite information. And again, when we're done, you're going to be able, I'm going to give you information, give you a guide saying, hey, this is how a book's cited, hey, this is how a magazine's cited. And when we say cited, we mean give credit to. It's, again, works cited are works that we have that we're giving credit to, works that we cited, works that we referenced, okay? In other formats, it's called references. You might even hear the term bibliography. A bibliography is a list of books that were used during research, but your works cited is more specifically the things you actually quoted or referenced during your research. Okay, this is the part you need to really pay attention to.
So even if the last page of your paper only takes up the first line or two, you still need to create a new page by hitting enter and start with your works cited title called.
Okay, when he says hit enter and start with a new page, you can actually select a page, what we call a page break in Microsoft Word, and it will go to the next page. You can hit enter until you get to the next page, but typically if you'll just end whatever paragraph you have, hit enter, then go to, I believe it's insert and then page break, it'll take you to the next page.
Conveniently enough, works cited. And that is also centered. Now you'll notice the page number here still appears. This document only has 2 pages, so it only says 2, but we're assuming in a longer research paper it would say, Smith 9 or 10. By the time we get to the end of this paper, it could be longer. And the key idea is, similar to the title of the paper, we have works cited, centered, there's another space, and then our works cited entries begin. Now, the main rule is that you alphabetize your sources by the author's last name. If you have a source that does not include a last name, you can cite it using the article title. But here, and for most articles that we're going to find on academic research databases, there will be authors, so we don't have to worry about it. So you cite the works cited entry by the author's last name, and you cite it alphabetically. And you can see here that we have June, I believe that's how it's pronounced, and Langhammer, so J comes before L. Now if we have 9 or 10 or 11 or 12 sources, of course it becomes more important that we alphabetize them so that the reader can quickly locate the source. Now, the basic format looks a bit like we could say a reverse paragraph. So instead of tabbing at the beginning of a paragraph, we're actually tabbing over each second or third or fourth line of the works cited entry. So the entry begins here and continues onward, and as it spills over into another line, we tab that line over once. Then a new entry begins with a new last name, and the same format is applied. And you can see here also this entire entry is double-spaced. The basic idea is that you're indicating the author, you're telling us what the author or authors wrote, and you're telling us where that article appeared, followed by some dates. The dates of publication and the date that you accessed it if it's from an online database. So here we have a good example because we have 2 authors. Now you do the reverse order, last name then first name, only for the first author, the author whose name appears first in the alphabet, and then the second author, Nathan Nelson, you type in the correct order first name, last name. And you can follow the formatting that they have here if you have that situation applied to your paper. Next, we have the title of the article in quotation marks. We have the name of the journal in which the article is published in italics. We have the date of this journal, and that's probably because this journal doesn't have a volume or issue number. It just uses the date to indicate when it was published. And again, we have European style, and this time we abbreviate the month. And this is followed by a colon and the page numbers on which the article appeared. So this is for someone who wants to access the journal and needs to know where it appears in the journal. So you're telling us the page numbers 642 through 44 that this article, Nature's Rotary Electromotors, appears in. That sounds like a wonderful article to read. And we follow up after the page numbers by indicating the database which this article was found, Science Online, and we put web to it.
All right, a word about databases. We have lots of different sources anymore. We have, like, if you notice here, they say web. That means they accessed it on the web. If it's a print source, it will actually say print instead of web. Both of these were web. We have what we call online databases. They're like online filing cabinets of magazines or journals or newspapers, which are also known as periodicals. And we call them periodicals because they come out periodically. They have a set time frame that they come out. Newspapers come out daily. Newsweek comes out weekly. Some magazines come out every month. Some magazines come out twice a month. Some come out every 3 months. Some journals come out once a year. Some journals come out twice a year. Some come out 3 times a year, whatever. And they're called periodicals because they have a periodical time frame that they are released. And that's why we call them periodicals. We have these databases like Science Online or ProQuest that tell you, or they compile all of these all this information electronically so that you don't have to go to the library and look for the actual journal. Okay, so when we talk about databases, that's really where you want to get your information, and we'll talk about credibility of sources here in a little while.
Indicate that this is an online database, and we finish up the entry with the date that we accessed this article, so the date that we read this article, and again, in the European style, and abbreviate the month. In order to satisfy the 3 steps for MLA formatting, you want to make sure that you include a heading and title, and certainly a page number with your last name. Second, you can utilize 2 different structures for incorporating quotations into your paper, the sentence finisher and the block quote, and you can follow those up with the parenthetical citations. Third,
okay, we kind of use the term in-text citations as well, interchangeably with parenthetical citations. Again, the citations happen inside the text. That's why we call them in-text citations. But additionally, they're in parentheses, so we also call them parenthetical citations.
You want to include on a separate page a works cited, and you'll want to format your entries according to the format for articles from an academic database, and you can consult me or OWL Purdue in order to adjust for any variations. So if you take a look at these 3 areas and you perfect the formatting, you should have no problem satisfying the requirements for the MLA dimension of this paper.
Oops, let's escape out of that. If I can find my recorder, I'll get you guys. Okay, one resource that I really wanted to show you. If you go to college, this resource will be like your paper writing Bible. Okay, it's the Purdue University Online Writing Lab known as OWL. Okay, they have MLA. They also have the other formatting, which, like I said, APA is one you will use in a lot of different subject areas. But I kind of wanted to just show you how this website works. They've got the basic formatting, the general format, like what a paper should look like. If you look down here, we have, let me make that a little bit bigger. Okay, we have, again, that's 1/2 inch, your last name and the page number, and that will be on every single page. Then on the very first paper page, the heading, it's your name, professor's name, the course name, and this is a part that most people mess up. And if you're tested on the EOI, please remember that it's the European format. We have the day, the month, then the year. It's the 3rd day of August in 2009. Think about it as it's a sentence you're saying. We know how to format a date, but we do it differently than a large part of the world, okay? So again, it's the 3rd of August in 2009, okay? So today would be, whatever day in whatever month in 2014, which is when I recorded this. So again, really note that format, and again, the order: your name, teacher's name, course, date. Okay, your title, again, nothing funky about it. It's not bolded, it's not underlined, it's not bigger than the rest of the font. It's in normal font. The paragraphs, again, no extra spacing. It's just all double spaced all the way through. There's no extra spacing. You hit tab, you type your paragraph, and you just keep typing, and it goes to the next line. When you get to the end of the line, you don't have to do anything, and it'll go all the way until you get to here, and then you'll just hit enter. A lot of times it will auto format for you and tab you over one more, for your indentation. And if it doesn't, you just hit tab again and you start your next paragraph and you continue typing. And like I said, it will go to the next line on its own when you run out of room. You don't have to hit enter between those lines at all. The only time you hit enter is at the end of the paragraph. Like I said, I just wanted to clarify some of that for you. Let me take this back down to a smaller size so we can get it all on here. The MLA, again, OWL is awesome for anything you need to do. Let's look at an actual sample paper. Okay, a sample paper. This is a great resource. The green box explains it, but the blue box tells you the directions for what you need to do. Okay, again, blue box is the stuff that you would need for the EOI. The green box kind of tells you why. Okay, again, notice that their title is centered, but the font's not any different than anything else. Okay. Again, they kind of tell you, they explain how to use headings. That's not something you'd be tested over. The testing part will come down. Well, we do have the thing about titles. A title of a book, of a larger piece of work, is going to be italicized. But if it's an article that occurs within a magazine that has a title, or within a book that has a title, or like it's a poem that's within a larger work, the larger work gets italicized. The shorter work gets quotation marks, and you'll see that more when we get into the works cited page. And you'll notice, again, if it's a quote and it's inside the text and it's short, we have the citation inside the period. But if it's a longer quotation like this, then it's going to be outside the quotation. And here they didn't use his name because they cited his name up earlier in the actual, they'd already cited it. It said John Nicholson. Okay, so they'd already cited his name. Okay, so those are some of the little technicalities. If you give his name within the sentences that you're writing, you don't include their name. If you don't, you just use the quote, then you just put the deal. The et al. Means and others. If you have a source, and you will have a lot of sources that have more than one name, that's how you do it. On the EOI, though, the way they do the questions typically are that they tell you how to cite it. They'll tell you it's the author, the title, and the publication. They'll tell you how to cite it. It's like a mini CSI thing. They give you all the instructions you need. They give you all the evidence. You just have to format it and pick which of the 4 answer choices is formatted correctly. Okay, which one is formatted correctly. Okay, and again, they do them in alphabetical order. They might ask you about an alphabetical order question. Okay, again, if it's print, we're going to watch another little video about that. But here is like what I was talking about. The article or the web, like this is a website, the web page itself is in quotation marks. The title or the place that actually housed it, which this is the University of Virginia Library, that would be the website that did it. That is going to be in the italics. Let me see if I can find another one. I don't have any really good ones on here. The next source that I will explain that a little bit better. Let's talk about the credibility of a website real quick. We all the time, that's something they'll test you over, is whether a website's credible. Okay, anybody can own a .com, anybody can own a .net, people can start up a .org. .edu, though, you have to be an actual accredited educational system or foundation. So .edus, .gov, again, .gov means that it is actually a legitimate part of the government, and .edu is that it's a accredited educational system. So those are usually considered more credible than a .com or a .net or a .org. Now, having said that, like Wikipedia, we always tell people don't use Wikipedia. I'm okay if you start there, and most professors are too in college. You can start at Wikipedia. It gives you a general idea of where to look for information. But the deal about a wiki is that I can log in today and change where somebody talks about how the earth is round and change it to say, no, the earth is actually flat. And until somebody catches that I changed it, it'll stay up there. So wikis are a good place to get kind of background knowledge or a starting place to get information from, but you should never use them as an actual source. You want to go find a legitimate source, a credible source that says the same pieces of information. Okay, now when we're talking about credibility, that's not to say that a blog is not considered credible, okay? A blog is probably is not considered credible. But the difference is this: it doesn't mean that the person on the blog is wrong. It doesn't mean that they're lying. It doesn't mean any of those things. It just means that as a whole, society is saying, because again, you're trying to prove a point to people that don't believe it, and you're trying to get them to accept it as a truth. So you kind of got to go with people that are generally accepted as experts. When you go to a website, if you can't figure out who it is that is supporting the website or publishing on the website or giving the information, if they don't give their credentials, if you can't Google them and find out who they really are, and again, you also have to decide, are they telling the truth about who they are? And again, if it's on .edu or .gov, more likely than on a .com or .net or .org. But it's kind of the same concept along the lines of this. It doesn't mean that that a blog is not accurate and that they're not right, and it's not, even something epic that could be completely, mind-blowing and thought-provoking or challenging and change the way we think. Because again, most people, again, the guy that said the earth is no longer flat, that the earth is round, wasn't met with applause immediately. So I'm not saying that those things should be completely discredited. Definitely not. But what I'm saying is it's kind of like the same lines along the same lines of this. I show up to work in ripped jeans and a hoodie. I have to work 3 times as hard to be accepted as credible or to be taken seriously as a teacher than somebody who shows up in a suit every day just because of the way I look. And does it make it right? No. Does it mean that I don't know what I'm talking about? Absolutely not. But when you're doing an academic paper, you don't want to have to fight those battles. So just go with credible sources. Okay, back on the actual Purdue website, again, that sample paper came from Purdue. Let's look at the works cited. They have some basic formats, and this is what you're going to be actually practicing. They talk about how you list author's name. Again, it's last name and then first name, unless it's more than one author, and we'll talk about that in a minute. If it's a work by more than one author, let's say you have 2 books. He did a grammar of motives and a rhetoric of motives. That's when you have the 3 dashes, and we're going to watch a little video about that. No known author, you're going to start with the name of the actual, a shortened version of the title. And those are some of the basic, and like I said, we're going to go over and watch a video of that. They have how you cite books. Okay, a book with 1 author is this: last name, comma, first name, period, the title. Again, if it's more than 1 author, it's last name, comma, first name, and then it switches back to the first name and then last name, title, and all of that information. Like I said, we're going to watch an actual video about that here next. But the main thing is, again, this works cited page is, again, that agreed upon commonality of how we access information. If we do research and if we assert, hey, this is what this person said and this is what they meant, they need to be able to go to our works cited page and say, okay, here's the author, it's to see if it's all the information they need in order to find the original source themselves. It's a kind of a honor system, a way to make sure that people aren't lying about what they have written. All right, so now you're going to watch a video that kind of explains the Works Cited page. This is what you really need to pay attention to. Again, this is what you'll be tested over, and this is the exercise that you will actually be completing. I'm going to give you the information. You will be creating your own Works Cited page for me. So, let's see.
MLA formatting lists of works cited. A vidcast brought to you by Beth Jones and Gina Hurley in cooperation with the Purdue Online Writing Lab. This vidcast takes you through how to format a list of works cited following MLA style. We will use the 7th edition of the MLA manual. Your instructor may have different guidelines for you to follow. Always follow your instructor's guidelines. In this vidcast, we will cover MLA citation for the following types of sources: books, journal articles, magazines, newspapers, encyclopedias, and websites.
Okay, real quick, I just want to talk. Books are, again, something that we use. We do have ebooks now, so you will have to specify whether it's in print or on the web. Journal articles, magazines, and newspapers, those are all periodicals. Again, they come out periodically. They have a set time frame that they are issued out. Encyclopedias, we have different volumes and different sets, so those, again, we don't use them as much, but we also have online encyclopedia databases that we use, and so again, we have to specify whether we accessed it online or in the actual library. And then, of course, we have websites.
For information on in-text citation or other kinds of sources, please refer to the links in the video description. For this demonstration, we will use Microsoft Word 2007. Basic rules. Begin your works cited page on a separate page at the end of your research paper. It should have the same 1-inch margins and header with your last name and the page number as the rest of your paper. Label the page Works Cited. Center the words Works Cited at the top of the page, but do not italicize them or put them in quotation marks. Double space all citations, but do not skip spaces between entries. To set your line spacing to double space, open up the paragraph menu in Microsoft Word. Change the default line spacing setting from after 10 point to 0 point. Then change line spacing to double. Each entry should have a hanging indent, which means that the first line of the citation is flush with the left margin, and the second and subsequent lines are indented 5 spaces. To create a hanging indent, open up the paragraph menu in Microsoft Word. In the indentation menu under Special, select Hanging. When needed, list the page numbers of sources as concisely as possible. If you refer to a journal article that appeared on pages 225 through 250, list the page numbers on your works cited page as 225 to 50. If you refer to a journal article that appeared on pages 174 through 212, list the page numbers on your works cited page as 174 to 212.
All right, a word about that. I'm not really sure why we do this. Like, it saves that much time, like that one extra one right here. To kind of summarize that up is that if we change the first number, if we change in tens or in hundreds or whatever, if we change that first number, we go ahead and list out the full number. But let's say if it was 127 to 153, we drop the 1. I guess it's a time saver. I'm not really sure why we still do it. It's kind of goofy, I think, but that is something that we do. Okay, so pay attention to that. We're talking about page numbers. If the first number changes somehow, then we cite the whole thing out. We write the whole thing out, but if it doesn't change, we only write the part that changed. So if that was 227, it would still say 227-53 because it was 227 to 253. It's not that it goes backwards. That makes sense.
The 7th edition of the MLA Style Guide includes several basic changes. For every entry, you must determine the medium of publication. Most entries will likely be listed as print or web sources, but other possibilities may include film, CD-ROM, or DVD. Writers are no longer required to provide URLs for web entries if your instructor or...
Okay, this is something that has changed. When you used to cite anything that was on the web, you had to give the actual web address of it, and as you know, that might take up 3 lines depending on the actual URL, the link that you used for it, and it's not the shortened version of it, it's the long version of it. So that's not something that they have to do anymore. This MLA thing is, every year they kind of get together as a group, the Modern Language Association, and they sit down and they say, okay, this is no longer necessary, or this is necessary. So as technology advances, the MLA modifies and changes. So it is something that you do have to kind of check out every year, especially when you're in college.
The publisher requires them include them in angle brackets after the entry and end with a period. Break lines only at slashes. If you're citing an article or a publication that was originally issued in print form but that you retrieved from an online database, you should type the online database name in italics. You do.
Okay, the database is what I was talking about, how we have different online filing cabinets, if you will, that we store all of these articles and journals that were in print, but we also have access to them electronically. So that's what they're talking about here. You just have to say, hey, I got it through this database. Does it mean that it's only available in this database? Absolutely not. It can be available in a million different databases, but you cite the one that you retrieved it from and the date of when you actually retrieved it. This 2007 is when it was published, but this, the 27th day of May in 2009, is when they actually accessed it.
Do not need to provide subscription information in addition to the database name. Capitalize each word in the titles of articles, books, etc., but only capitalize articles, prepositions, or conjunctions if one is the first word of the title or subtitle.
All right, on this, it's kind of something you should know from a kid, but if not, please note that when the is an article, we have with, which is a preposition, and conjunctions, we've got and as a conjunction. Unless they are the beginning letter or the beginning word of a title, the beginning word of a title is always capitalized. The last word of a title is always capitalized. But when you have these prepositions or articles, the, a, and, with, to, before, stuff like that, of, in the middle, we don't capitalize those. We only capitalize if they come at the beginning of a title.
Use italics for the titles of larger works like books or magazines, and quotation marks for titles of shorter works like brief poems or articles.
Okay, this is what I was talking about. This is obviously an article that's within a book, or it's a poem that's within a book. The book titles are italicized. The shorter things that come within the book or within the magazine, let's say I have Newsweek, but I have an article that is about schools today. The article gets put in quotation marks because it's the shorter version of it, but Newsweek would be in italics because it's the actual magazine.
Entries are listed alphabetically by the author's or editor's last name. Author names are written last name first with middle initials following the first name. Do not list titles such as Doctor or PhD, however, include suffixes such as Junior. If you have cited more than one work by a particular author, order the entries alphabetically by title and use 3 hyphens in place of the author's name for every entry after the first. If the work has no known author, alphabetize it by its title. Citation format for basic sources. To cite a book properly, first include the author's name, last name first, followed by a period. Then place the title of the book in italics, followed by a period. Next, indicate the city of publication, followed by a colon. Conclude.
Okay, this is the thing that I was telling you. This is what we're going to do. I'm going to give you some books, and I'm going to give you all the information out of order, and then you're going to format it in this manner because this is the way that you'll be tested over it on the EOI.
Publisher, followed by a comma, and the year of publication, followed by a period. Finally, indicate the medium of publication. Note that there are different guidelines for books with more than one author, translations, editions, and anthology.
Okay, one thing I want to talk about is the use of the word medium and media. It's essentially one's plural, one's singular. It's the same word. The medium is the same thing as your media. When we say media, we're talking about like what type of technology or what type of information that you're using it. Okay, when we say social media, we're talking about technologies. And a book is a technology. It's a way that we get information. It's not as high tech as we think about technology now, but it is a technology. Social media is a type of technology in which we are social on. Okay, so media and medium are interchangeable here. Just one's plural, one's singular. So don't get lost on that.
To learn more about citing these sources, please refer to the links in the video description. Cite magazines by listing the author's name, last name first, followed by a period. Then include the title of the article in quotation marks, followed by a period. Italicize the title of the periodical, followed by the day, abbreviated month, and year in which it was published. After the date, place a colon and include the page numbers of the story, followed by a period. Finally, indicate the medium of publication, followed by a period. The citation for newspapers is nearly identical to the citation for magazines. The only difference is the pagination in the newspaper. If there is more than one edition available for that date, as in an early and late edition,
When we say pagination, we're talking about how we number the pages, okay? Again, they have late editions, they number the pages a little bit different, things like that. So just, again, pay attention to it like this. It's a title of a newspaper, but apparently it's produced in different cities. So that's what we're looking at, okay?
identify the edition following the date. If the newspaper is a less well-known or local publication, include the city name and state in brackets after the title of the newspaper. To cite an article from a scholarly journal, list the author's name, last name first, followed by a period. Then include the title of the article in quotation marks, followed by a period. List the title of the scholarly journal in italics. Indicate the volume and issue numbers separated by a period. Include the year in parentheses, followed by a colon, and the pages of the article, followed by a period. Finally, indicate the medium of publication, followed by a period. To cite an entry in an encyclopedia or other reference book, cite the piece as you would any other work in a collection. Do not include the publisher information. Also, if the reference book is organized alphabetically, do not list the volume or the page number of the article or item.
Okay, when we talk about references, we're talking about encyclopedias, dictionaries. They're the reference materials in the library. They have their own little section, and they're just kind of general knowledge books. In anthology, though, you will see this on the EOI because they're going to ask you questions about, like, if I want to learn more about something, where might I go? And an anthology is a collection of works. They are tied together. An anthology is tied together based on some commonality, some common theme, some common element. It might be that it's an anthology of women's writing, so everything in there is going to be written by women. It might be an anthology of poetry, so everything's going to be a poem. It might be an anthology of modern poetry, so not only is it going to be a poem, but it's going to be modern. It might be an anthology of a specific author's works. It might be an anthology of short stories. It might be an anthology of essays. It might be an anthology of American Indian literature. It might be an anthology of classical literature, an anthology of world literature. They're tied together by some theme. An anthology of vampire stories. They're just tied together by some theme, something in common that they all have. And it's compiled together in one large book. So when we talk about anthologies, it's almost like a magazine on steroids. It's a larger collection of works put together in one book, okay? And then our references are going to be like encyclopedias, thesauruses, dictionaries, things like that.
Include the title of the article in quotation marks, followed by a period. Then list the title of the reference book in italics, followed by a period. Indicate the edition and year, followed by a period. And finally, indicate the medium of publication, followed by a period. Not every web page provides detailed information, but in general, try to include author and/or editor names, if available, article name in quotation marks, if available, title of the website, project, or book in italics. Remember that some print publications have web publications with slightly different names. They may, for example, include the additional information or otherwise modified information like domain names. Any version numbers available, including revisions, posting dates, volumes, or issue numbers.
Okay, these electronic sources, because we have all these new technologies, which, by the way, in research right now are called new literacies, because we're having to learn how to read and understand and comprehend them. We have all this different information, and you want to try to find this, and your source is going to be considered more credible. The more information you can get about something, the more credible your source is. If you have to really hunt for it, or you can't figure out, like I went to a website the other day, and I was trying to figure out who sponsors this website. Never could get a name. You contact them and you get no answer. So I'm going to go with the website's not really legitimate, okay? yes, they are sponsoring it, they're paying for it, it may be something they believe in, but let's be honest, if you really believe in something, you're willing to stand up, put your name out there and say, hey, I support this. Kind of like our political ads, I support this ad, okay? They don't support their website with information that is helpful to anybody, so I'm going to go with it's not a credible website, okay? But all of this information is what you're looking for.
Publisher information, including the publisher name and publishing date, any page numbers, if available, many websites do not use page numbers, medium of publication, date you access the material, and URL if required or for your own personal reference. MLA does not require a URL. When citing an entire website, list your date of access. First, list the editor, author, or compiler name, if available, followed by a period. Next, list the name of the site in italics, followed by a period.
Okay, again, compiler name means somebody that, like, let's say it's an online, you really wouldn't want to cite Google, but it's a website and they've compiled a list of information. They've pulled together a list of information. That's what they mean by compiler name. Who pulled all this together? They may not necessarily be the author, and it could be, like I said, we have editors, people that look at something and they edit out stuff and they decide what we're using from the actual author. So that's what they're talking about. Again, name of site, the version number, name of the institution or organization affiliated, the site, the sponsor, or the publisher. Like OWL, that online writing lab, is sponsored by Purdue, University. So that's their sponsor or publisher. So you want to look for those things. If they don't have one, and it's just like, hey, my name's Bob Jones. Okay, well, who's Bob Jones? Okay, and if they can't provide that information and you can't verify, so maybe he says, I'm Dr. Bob Jones. I graduated from the University of Stanford. Guess what? Google that and see if it's true. Okay, and again, date of the resource created. A lot of times at the bottom of a website, they'll put like a copyright date or date it was created, and that's what they're looking about. You want to look at the bottom of the website and see. And then again, the medium of the publication. Is it a website? Is it an online database? Is it a blog? Is it, what is it? And then when did you actually access it? When did you look at the information? Okay?
Period. List the version number followed by a period. Indicate the institution or organization affiliated with the site followed by a comma, and the date of resource creation followed by a period. Indicate the medium of publication followed by a period, and finally list your date of access followed by a period. To cite an individual page on a website, is the author or alias if known, followed by the information previously discussed for entire websites. Since different websites provide different kinds of information, citations for web-based sources can take many different shapes, include as much information as you can find on the website itself. If no publisher name is available, use N period P period. If no publishing date is available, use N period D period. For more information on MLA citation, please visit the links provided in the video description. This has been a presentation of MLA formatting, lists of works cited, a vidcast by Beth Jones and Gina Hurley, brought to you in cooperation with the Purdue Online Writing Lab.
Okay, please notice how they cited everything they use, and they gave credit to the stuff, they gave credit to the music. You really should do that. And I know teachers do it. I'm doing it right now. I'm not citing all this. I probably should. I'm not going to. But it makes me wrong. Just want you to know that. I'm okay with being wrong, though. Mostly because I've graduated and I don't have to pass an EOI, so don't get any ideas in your head. But you really should, even if you take graphics or pictures from another website, you should cite them or give them credit at the end of. And I have in college papers, anytime I did that, I did a PowerPoint on Dante's Inferno, and I used music from all over the place, and I used pictures and artwork from all over the place. And you know what? I had an entire credits reel after it, because you got to give credit to people when you steal their stuff. And I mean, it is stealing. If you don't give credit, it's stealing. If you give credit, you're just, supporting them. I mean, it's a different world. But keep that in mind when next time you do a presentation or a project and you take these graphics off a website, at least cite the website and give them credit for what they're doing. Okay? Let me get out of this. Find that. Okay, resource I want to show to you. If you ever have to write an actual research paper in college or even next year, you need to know about EasyBib.com, okay? MLA citations are free. You might have to pay for APA, but the way this works is you take you go to this website. I should probably go to the home page here. Let's go to the home page. EasyBib.com is a bibliography. Again, I told you a bibliography is a list of all books used in research, but the works cited is going to be the actual books and resources that you use. Again, there's different types of formatting. MLA is free. This one will even do, it tells you about the different types. There's a website, a book, a newspaper, a journal, a database. 59 different freaking options of things you could do. All of these things could and should be cited. Most popular are right here. They've got the Bible, a blog or a podcast, a cartoon, a chapter in an anthology, dictionary entry, digital file, digital image, painting or artwork, a pamphlet, a photograph, a scholarly project, software, a map, a chart, again, all of these things, an executive order or a federal bill, depending on what you're writing, you're going to need that information. Okay, so let's go back to website, and then let me pull up something here. I think I did MSNBC. Let's go there and see what we can pull up. Okay, let's go to the website. Let's find an actual article. The way this works, it's really cool. It's so helpful. Let's see, we're going to go to Pelosi. Cheney is proud of the tone he set. Okay, that's our article. We are going to copy and paste this URL up here. Okay, copy and paste it. We're going to go over here. We are going to just paste that in there and click cite it. And wham bam, thank you ma'am. It's going to ask you if there's anything else you need to know. This is what they found about it. It tells you everything they found. Not all websites will have that information. Continue to the final step. They even tell you the website's credible. Okay? I don't know if you noticed that. It says we believe that this site is credible. Okay, again, does it mean they are not biased? No. But it's, again, MSNBC, it's a legitimate news source, okay? They take you to the website that they would normally ask you all these questions. Let's say you have a book, and they start asking you, okay, what's the author? They ask you for the important information, and then they format it for you when you click Create Citation, okay? This is what it would look like in your paper, and this tells you when you accessed it and how, okay? Let's say we had a book. I'm just going to cite it because let's pretend I don't know the name of the book. Okay. Maybe it won't work that way. Let's see. Let me type Star Girl. It's a book I can think of right off the top of my head. Okay. It's searching for results. Okay. Look, hey, it found it. So I can just select it. If it doesn't have it, and again, it always takes you to this page where it says you're citing the whole book, maybe a chapter or a section, the preface or an introduction, and it lets you, because it's again kind of an online database, it's got all this information. They've got everything they need to know about it already here, but if it was, okay, let's see, maybe because I did it actually online, and it asked about the title, the sponsor, which mine would be like Kindle or stuff like that, when it was electronically published. That would be additional information that I would have to go seek out. And you want to put as much information as you can into this, but the main thing is to be able to give them what they need to know, to be able to locate the exact source that you were using. Okay, so now we have used almost the entire hour discussing what format and everything you need to use. The next class session, you will be given some information. And again, on the EOI, I'm pretty sure they will tell you, hey, here's how it should be formatted: author, title, publication, stuff like that. And they'll tell you the order. And then they'll give you, here's the author, here's the book. They'll give you the first page, maybe, of the book. Let me see if I can find that real quick. Okay, this isn't the best view of it because of the way it is. But let's say you're looking at the beginning of the page. When you're trying to get all this information, this is your publisher, this is where it was published, this is your copyright date that they're going to want, where it was printed, things like that. It's a first edition. These first 2 pages of a book is where you get all this information from, okay? Okay, you will probably watch a video before you do the next activity, and it's going to be a kind of general overall knowledge, but it's going to be a quiz over what information is important, so make sure you're paying attention.